We all like to think that we have a plan for every situation that we get into. Unfortunately, most of the time that's not the case. And we've talked about succession planning here a little bit in the early part of our conversation. And I want to come back to that because, again, the data shows us it's very staggering, very interesting as well. Fewer than half of organizations have formal succession plans in place, and only 36% of boards feel confident in their CEO succession, which again is a very telling statistic. I want to talk a little bit about this perceived readiness. Us thinking, okay, we're ready for this, this is fine, it'll all work out, right? Where does perceived readiness most often diverge from this reality that we're currently facing? And how can systems close that gap before disruption really hits? Betty, I know you've touched on this a little bit, but we'd love to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, I would say many organizations, I think, believe they have a succession plan and successors, but often what I have found is they have candidates and not readiness. And so I think leadership, pipeline development, it has to be intentional. Future internal candidates especially need exposure across multiple parts of the organization. I recently met with a CHRO of one of the top 10 children's hospitals, and their approach impressed me because not only do they have internal candidates identified for succession, but they have external talent tagged for people that they would want to consider should an opportunity open up for an executive role. So I think just being more innovative and forward thinking when it comes to succession planning, I think will position organizations better.
Richard, in your initial answer earlier in the conversation, you highlighted the fact that, yeah, we like to think we have that plan in place, but the reality of it is might not be. Again, where does this perceived readiness most often diverge from that reality? And again, how are you thinking about closing that gap before we have that disruption that we've touched on?
Yeah, there's a couple things I would say. The first is that we talk about internal candidates, and I find myself saying this out loud every time we have this discussion with a search. We always seem to focus on an internal candidate's weaknesses and an external candidate's strengths, right? So we know the internal candidate, we focus on, they could do this better, they could do that better. So I'm not sure we do our internal candidates a service all the time. The other thing I would say, to Betty's point about identifying external candidates, sometimes I'm on the other end of that. We get somebody ready, we send them to get a degree, or we send them through a fellowship program, and now they're ready to go. And I have to say, well, it may be 1 or 2 years, they're looking somewhere else. So my succession plan is automatically trained up to start looking somewhere else now because they're ready. They've been trained, and so they may leave before I have an opening for them. So those are the two things I encounter the most, I think.
Mike, would love to get your thoughts here as well.
When I reflect on this, I reflect on what's going on currently in college sports with NILs and people leaving organizations all over the place, leaving colleges. And the same thing's happening in healthcare, right? To Dr. Freeman's point, I mean, you develop people in your organization and they pick up and leave somewhere else. So I would say that's why when we're looking for talent, especially one of the things I like to focus on is do they care about the organization's mission? Do they demonstrate that they care about why they're here? I mean, I call it a give a blank index, because if they care a lot, if it's high, you can always develop the skill sets or maybe the opportunities that they need to close the gap, to take it to the next level. And at the same time, we also have to be coaching our teams and our individual leaders that maybe the right step is not up, but it's over here or in this role, because their skill sets, their knowledge base, their ability to move change is so important. We need them over here. And if they're committed to the organization, they'll do that. They'll stay. It gets back to this concept of culture and why that's so very, very important. Mission, values, and driving that back to the fundamental premise of why we're here in the first place. But I think all too often people might get, to Dr. Freeman's point, people get impatient. They feel like they probably put in their time and effort. Now they want to expand somewhere else, and that's okay. But I think we have to be deliberate in really cultivating the talent of individuals that really want to stay and are eager to learn, like we said before, other parts of the organization, because it's just going to make them stronger moving forward, whether they stay or leave.
Rob, we could just do it like some of the schools around the country. We could open a car dealership and offer every new hire a brand new car to come and work for us, right? But that's unfortunately not the reality. Rob, again, from your perspective, what does this look like?
I don't think I could say already been said here. I do think that, Mike brings a great point forward as it relates, or an example would be the NIL piece of this. I mean, I think we really have to, as leaders in healthcare organizations, stay attuned to and network through in such a way that we are able to identify talent that may be, additive and positive for our organization. I think that definitely is a strong approach and a valued approach. The other thing that I would say too, again, to what Mike said, is you have the ladder and the lattice, right? So when it comes to development of folks, some of that is going to go up, some of that is going to go, maybe to the side, maybe more laterally than vertically, right? Or horizontally. And I strongly support that, because people, leaders in all levels of the organization, they're people too, right? Their desires change, their passions change, their family circumstances change. That all has an impact on their career path and where they see themselves and what they want to do. And we have to be open and flexible and dynamic enough to be able to embrace that moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.